Bose. Welcome to the Esports Trade Association Esports Connected podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate you having me.
I'm loving the background. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Sure. So I'm located in Dallas, Texas, and so I was just kind of going through Google trying to find some nice images to show where I am, and have a nice kind of lighting setup as well. It's not too dark and gives you a nice view of the downtown Dallas. So
It's a great city.
yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I've been here over 20 years now. Grew up in the area, went to high school in a suburb north of Dallas, and then went to school at UT Dallas. So, it's been home for a little while now.
For sure. And that's when you got into esports. You were at an event in Dallas, is that right?
That's right. I went to a Dallas Startup Week event. It was hosted by Infinite Esports up in Frisco, Texas. I believe it was back in 2018. That was my first kind of exposure to esports as an industry. They had, kind of a networking and educational panel that featured several prominent speakers. And it was very eye-opening, when they started talking about just kind of the number of people watching esports and participating and things like that. And my background is business valuation, and at the time I was working for a firm that specialized in traditional sports valuations, and so I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of expand both my capabilities as well as the firm's capabilities, and see if we could get into esports as well. Being in Dallas too, it's a bit of an esports hub. There's several very large, prominent esports related entities here in the area, and so hoping to kind of develop those relationships and get to know esports a bit better through them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that you've made your way through you've just been a wonderful member of the Esports Trade Association. You've joined us as a speaker. You've been very generous. You serve on, I believe, the membership community or committee and provide evaluations for our members. Tell me a little bit about evaluations. I mean, I know they're very broad in range. I know that I know that you've worked for a firm that did some evaluations even for the Shark Tank businesses. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool. And I would imagine the range of getting your business evaluated is very vast. So tell us.
Yeah, like you said, it's very broad. There's so many different reasons you would need a business valuation, right? It could be anywhere from you just want to get an idea of where your business is at a certain point in time. Maybe there's some sort of shareholder event. Someone wants to exit the company, something like that. It could be as serious as, divorce or litigation, and things like that as well. There are, I guess, a wide range of services that can be provided, right? Evaluation for, just to get an idea of kind of how your business is running and where you are is a lot less time intensive and a lot less complicated than one, for example, for a litigation where, multiple sets of lawyers looking at documents and just you have to cross every T and dot every I and just make sure everything's up to par. The time, I guess, kind of also varies, based on the type of valuation you need. Some of them can be knocked out in a couple of weeks, and I've worked on projects that took upwards of 8 months. It just kind of depends.
So when is a good time to get your business evaluated?
Yeah, so I think that's, it's obviously up to the business owners themselves, but, my recommendation would be if you're looking to, for investors and kind of want to set a good price point, right? You don't want to undervalue yourself, but you also, don't want to throw out some numbers that are just way too high that people are going to laugh at and, without even really taking you seriously. So I think that's one point. Another is, if you're kind of reorganizing a company and want to give some equity compensation to some employees, right? In order to figure out how much those shares are worth, you're going to need a valuation. And so that's another kind of scenario I could see my services being used. Yeah, there's other, if you're just kind of curious as to how your business is operating right now, right? 2020 was obviously a weird year for everyone. And so, how did 2020 compare to 2019, 18, 17? And, where are some areas that maybe you learned something, you improved, and can kind of move forward and take that with you into 2021 and continue to get better as a business.
What are investors looking for when they're looking at your evaluation?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for investors, right, risk and growth are the two primary components in really any investment. And so risk meaning, how am I going to make my money back? Is it a very stable company where, the income's pretty predictable and, I know what this company is going to do for the next 5-10 years, or, is it we need a couple things to hit and then, this company is going to take off and it's do really well. So risk, and then growth is, just how much potential does this company have, right? What's your target market? If it's a product, how many units can you sell in a given period? And what does that look like over the next few years? And how do you kind of expand and diversify your offerings as well? And going back to the risk standpoint too, there's the whole sources of revenue, right? And I think most investors prefer a recurring source of revenue of some sort. So could be, some sort of subscription model where you have a set number of customers or clients that are paying you monthly or quarterly, or whatever it is, but it's a kind of predictable recurring revenue that kind of lowers your risk profile a little bit as from an investor standpoint. And then, there's the flip side to that with the high growth. You have one thing that just hits really well and you selling hundreds of thousands of units of it, but it's a one-time thing, right? And that's not as predictable depending on the investors and kind of what they're looking for. A little bit more hesitant maybe to look at those types of companies.
So what are you seeing as far as your customers, clients? I know there's some people in the Esports Trade Association that are hiring you. What are you seeing as far as some esports trends? What's happening over in your world?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I've noticed is just kind of an increased awareness in esports, right? You're seeing so many large brands trying to get into it, and so how do we best do that? And I think a lot of companies are learning that you have to do it in kind of an authentic manner. And so, what are some companies that can help us connect with the esports space in an authentic manner? And so merchandising and kind of apparel companies that are out there that are doing a great job and really knocking it out of the park, and I think are seeing a lot of interest in their products and their business, to be fair. And then there's just so many ways to kind of approach esports too, right? Like it's not just the games, it's the clothing, it's the stuff that participants consume, whether it's food, drink, whatever it might be. Then there's the whole kind of accessory market as well, right? Headphones, controllers, other accessories like that. And then platforms as well, right? There's so many different ways to become visible in esports and gaming. So what are some tools and platforms you're using there to get that kind of exposure?
Yeah, this whole evaluation, when I first heard about what you did, I thought, why not have the Esports Trade Association get one? Tell me what the key points and the takeaways are of a business evaluation.
Sure. Yeah. So I think it's just really getting to understand a business from the inside out. Typical business valuation, you're interviewing management, you're kind of getting an idea of the operations, and you're trying to kind of get the best picture you can as an analyst of the business. And obviously you're not working for that company, or you haven't been an employee of the company, but you're really trying to get kind of that inside look and provide a nice perspective and kind of idea of what the business does and how it operates. And so you have to have a real understanding of, each specific company that you work with. And, the process starts with kind of information gathering. There's the basic financial statements that you're looking at just to get a picture financially of where the company is. And then it's also understanding kind of from an operation and qualitative standpoint, what sets this specific company apart from its peers? Where is it the same? How can it improve, or what does it do better than its peers? And then, depending on kind of the services requested, it could end with a written report, kind of documenting, here's where you are from a financial standpoint, here's where you are from a kind of company standpoint, both within your industry as well as kind of the broader market overall. And then, here's a value or a range of numbers that are a best estimate of kind of your financial results.
I see on Shark Tank, the sharks sometimes just rolling over in their seat about evaluations. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so I mean, when you're an owner of a company, you obviously you spend a lot of time and effort in building that company. And so sometimes I think you're a little bit maybe optimistic. And so the figures that get kind of thrown out, I think, are very emotionally tied. And so having a valuation from kind of an independent third party that would have a more objective look can be really helpful, right? Because, if I started a business, I'd be over the moon about it, and I'd be really excited about it. And, I might value myself too highly. And so, asking for, $100,000 for a 1% stake, and that's probably not realistic based on, kind of how my business has been running and things like that. So I think a valuation can be really helpful in getting kind of an objective third-party independent look at, your business, an outside look.
So do you watch Shark Tank?
Occasionally. I haven't in a while. I think part of it is I can't remember which channel it's on. And I also haven't had cable in a while.
Sure.
So I'm not entirely sure. I haven't watched Shark Tank in a little while.
Okay, so one of the things I see sometimes is just all of them are like, where did you get this number? And it's so obviously so off because the sharks, when they all are on the same page,
Sure.
they know.
Right.
And you see that quite regularly. I can't imagine, going on to Shark Tank without hiring someone like you first.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Obviously, you really want to have a good idea of where your business is and how you're operating. And I brought it up before, but I think it's just extreme optimism, right? You're too in the weeds to kind of have an objective look and kind of a higher level look than is probably necessary. You're going on Shark Tank, they don't have any relationship with the company or that person, and so it's just from a dollars and cents standpoint. Does this make sense for me as a shark? That's all they care about, is how am I going to make my money if I do invest in this company. And so
Right.
If you can't show them a path to profitability, or hopefully maybe you're already profitable, but how do you increase those profits? How are you generating additional revenue, things like that? It's not going to, I guess, be a pleasant interaction with the sharks.
So we're emulating a little bit of a Shark Tank experience here over at the Esports Trade Association for our conference in March. And we have the opportunity for our members to pitch. Not only that, I think it's so important to have your 90-second pitch ready in your video. When we had our member coffee, I think you were there the other day, we had one member that has his pitch ready, and then he added it into his signature. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really helpful to be prepared, and we're in such a virtual environment now anyway. A video pitch is probably going to be the first time someone gets introduced to your company, and so if you're able to explain your company well and what you do and how you do it, I think that's great. And not only that, in kind of putting together your video pitch, I think it really provides an opportunity to companies to kind of internally analyze themselves and figure out, what are our best attributes, right? And, maybe where can we improve? And I think it's a helpful kind of exercise in that sense too, to kind of get an idea and figure out as a business where you are.
Yeah, so this should be very exciting. I believe it's March 23rd. And you're probably providing evaluations for some of our members.
Yeah.
If not, I hope you are.
I'd be happy to. I'm on the verge of, I guess, accepting a new role for my full-time work. I guess details to be announced shortly.
Well, this has been very interesting. Thank you, Rohan. What do you
Sure.
think is coming in 2021? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think, a lot of very interesting things, both from an industry standpoint as well as just kind of from a personal and professional standpoint. Esports industry, I think, during 2020 got a good amount of increased exposure and interest in the industry. And so I think there's been some lessons learned from the last year that I think are going to be implemented in 2021. And, hopefully kind of in the second half of the year, we can start having those in-person events again. And you start to see kind of a rebound in kind of esports as a kind of community and just an event-based industry. From a professional standpoint, I'm about to begin as an associate at Technos Associates. They're involved in valuation and consulting for esports technology and cryptocurrency. And so I think it's a very interesting firm. I'm excited to get started and hopefully can help the esports industry and continue to kind of do my financial consulting and help the industry that way. And then in addition to that, there's a startup company I've been doing some work with as well called NutriGamer, hoping to launch in April, and I think has a very exciting and interesting product. I'm really excited about kind of where NutriGamer can go. It's a powdered drink mix that's a healthy alternative to your traditional energy drinks that you see cans of everywhere. Lower caffeine content, sugar-free, organic ingredients, and so I think a much better alternative to some of the things that are on the market right now, being led by some really accomplished and exciting people. And so I think a company that has a lot of potential. So yeah, I think 2021 is going to be an exciting time, and there's going to be some fun stuff happening.
Yes, you have really made an impact and a contribution to so many of our members. We're so grateful for you. You've given so much good advice, and it's just awesome to have a business evaluator, right here, right now, in an economy like this where investors want to get in our space and they want to get in authentically, they want to get in with great people. And our members need evaluations. We want them ready, for success when the phone rings.
Yeah, I agree. And that's I think probably the best thing anyone can do is just be prepared, right? You don't know when that next opportunity will happen or where it'll come from. But the better prepared someone can be, the better it's going to work out for them.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So grew up in the Dallas area, went to high school in Plano, Texas, and then went to college at the University of Texas at Dallas, which, if I'm not mistaken, has a very up and coming esports program. So that's exciting.
Yes.
And, always wanted to work in finance. interned at a local hedge fund and in kind of equity research, and learned a lot, but also learned that that world wasn't really for me. And then, started exploring other kind of avenues to get into finance. Came across Business Valuation. There was a posting on UTD's career website. It looked really interesting. Went ahead, applied, got the job, and then since then have been involved in valuation since I graduated. I've worked for a handful of firms since then, and they've all been, good learning opportunities and, taken away different things from each one. My previous firm specialized in traditional sports valuations, right? So I've had the opportunity to value NFL, MLB, and NBA franchises. I'm a big sports nut, and so for me, that was extremely exciting, getting to get a peek behind the curtain and see how these teams operate, especially from a kind of financial standpoint. And, got to meet some obviously really interesting people as well. Not every day you can pick up the phone and talk to the CFO of an NFL team. So, that's always exciting. And then being here in Dallas, we touched on it previously, but went to a Dallas Startup Week event, got introduced to the esports industry. I've been a gamer, since I was little. I think started with an N64 when I was 6, 7 years old. And then, kind of worked my way up from there, if you will. So been gaming, a good chunk of my life, and have always really enjoyed that aspect of it. And then getting exposed to, just how big the industry is and kind of where esports fits in within kind of that gaming ecosystem was really, really neat.
So what do you do when you're not evaluating? I mean, I appreciate and I hear the passion, and that, that really comes through. And
Sure.
obviously it's sports and it's gaming, but tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. So I've been playing soccer since I was 5 years old. And so to the extent that I can, I still try to play on weekends. At one point, I had an indoor team that I was kind of coaching, managing, and playing for. But then, with the pandemic and everything, stuff got kind of shifted and rescheduled. Other than that, I've started getting into the sports trading card market a little bit. Being a sports nut, it's been really fascinating to me just to kind of track that industry and kind of see what's going on there. And so that's kind of, I'd call it more of a hobby than a side business. But I've been flipping sports cards in my free time. Other than that, just reading and watching sports. Dallas Stars are probably my favorite team to watch and observe and follow. And then, obviously, in the esports scene, you have Envy, you have Complexity here, you have Hector Rodriguez with his Call of Duty team here. And if I'm not mistaken, for the 2021 Call of Duty League season, there's going to be, I think, 4 teams in DFW, just due to internet reasons and things like that. So excited to see how that kind of plays out and see if I can maybe run into some of those people in the street or something.
What are you seeing as some trends in esports?
Yeah, I think, just an increased public awareness is the biggest thing for me, right? My sister will ask me about esports, and she's probably the least plugged in person, just not interested in sports at all. And it's not one of her interests. But, I think she's also here in Dallas. And so she's seeing, kind of increased marketing and an increased presence of the industry in the area. And so, I think that's one of my biggest things is, family members that don't really have any involvement or interest or background in the industry are generally aware of it. And then, I have I guess, kind of international background. My parents grew up, born and raised in India, and then, came here. I was born in the US. So talking to family members outside of the country about esports and kind of what that looks like on an international level. And that's been really interesting as well. Obviously my cousins and those family members are all kind of within my age range, and so have a better awareness of esports. But then, talking to their parents and my aunts, uncles, grandparents, or kind of the older generations, and them, asking questions about esports has really been, I think, kind of the most exciting thing.
So I'm hearing that multi generations are asking you,
Yeah.
from multiple countries,
Yeah.
from your sister to your grandparents. What are you
Yeah.
telling them about esports?
Yeah, so obviously you have to tailor the explanation a little
Sure.
bit, right? One person can work an iPad and the other needs a little bit of help. But yeah, I think it's the simplest explanation I can come up with is, it's competitive gaming where, the participants are competing for money. And, the team members or individuals might be compensated by an organization, or most likely are compensated by an organization as well. And then, there's extra kind of avenues that they have to earn money from sponsorships and kind of appearances and things like that as well. So, it's a very dynamic industry, and one that, it's not just some kid, sitting behind a screen playing video games, right? It's a lot more to that. There's a lot of kind of production that goes into it. There's a lot of training and practice and, just getting to know a specific game really well, and literally better than anyone else in the world. Helping them understand that, esports athletes are just as involved in practicing just as much and training just as much as, athletes from traditional sports. It's not just playing video games. There's a more kind of competitive aspect to it.
So when you explained this to, say, your parents or your grandparents or your sister, was there any part of you that was explaining yourself when you were playing? And was there like that completion of this circle, perhaps?
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit. I don't know that I was very aware of, I guess kind of the competitive scene and the path to pro, if you will, when I was growing up. I'd heard of people maybe kind of testing video games and getting paid to play video games that way because, they were testing a product. I don't think I really heard of people, becoming professional gamers until probably, closer to end of high school and early college time, was when I kind of became more aware of that possibility. And so I don't know that me explaining, to my parents and grandparents that the reason I played, Madden 10 hours a day was because I wanted to become a pro. Is more, I just really enjoyed it and like playing with my friends, and the social aspect of it, right? Just getting to hang out with your buddies for an extended period of time.
Did you have limits on your play?
Yeah, we definitely had screen time limits, and kept the consoles in a different room that was easily monitored by my parents and things like that. I don't know that there was like a hard time limit. It was more just parents at some point would say, all right, turn it off and let's go do something else. That's kind of how our household worked.
So just your respectable balance.
Yeah, that's right. I grew up in the time where parents would encourage you to get off the computer or get away from the screen and go outside for a little while. I don't know for sure, but I imagine that might be flipping a little bit these days where, the increased screen time isn't necessarily a bad thing. And, just exposing yourself to different video games and learning and kind of practicing, isn't as frowned upon, I guess.
There's an old saying, if there was a book that parents could read on how to raise a child and succeed, I think they all would.
There's so many different ways, right? Yeah, and there's so many different circumstances and things like that. There's no one set recipe or kind of methodology that you can use. I think every situation's unique, and you just have to kind of do the best you can. I'm obviously extremely appreciative of my parents and the job they did. I'd like to think they did pretty well, and so yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of learning experience, I'm sure.
Well, it's really neat to bring your love for gaming and play
Mhm.
to business evaluations. Will you be focusing just in the esports industry, or do
Uh,
you work in any others?
Yeah, so the company I'm going to is a little bit more broad than that. They do have a focus in esports and gaming, and that's one area they're really looking to build out, and hopefully I can be a big part of that. But there's other industries that they're focused on as well. For example, cryptocurrency and biotechnology are other areas of focus. It's a firm out of California. They kind of grew up in the startup world, and so very much focused on kind of high tech, high growth companies with a lot of potential, and that are looking to hopefully IPO in the not too distant future. So it's a very interesting opportunity, and one that I think obviously esports and gaming will be a big part of.
It's great to hear that you've joined Technos and all the support that you'll be providing our pitches March 22nd and 23rd. Technos has been a great sponsor, supporter, member, and having you part of the team is just awesome. Congratulations. We look forward to those pitches on March 22nd and 23rd. Thank you, Rohan Bose with Technos.
Thank you.